Thanks everyone for joining us here on the halftime review. Delighted to be joined by Fraser Stewart this evening, who is the Scottish FA head of goalkeeping. Fraser's going to discuss the topic of developing goalkeepers through best practice this evening, and we've had a few questions put in advance, but also please feel free to use the chat box throughout, and myself and George will do our best to put them across to Fraser. So without further ado, thanks again for joining us, Fraser.
No, brilliant. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to come on and chat with you tonight. So, as the guys have said there, delighted to be with you. My role there, as it says on the screen just now, is the Scottish FA's head of goalkeeping. Basically, that's anything goalkeeping within our association at this moment in time, outside of the men's A squad. So everything outside of that kind of comes under my remit. So we look from the men's under 21s national team and the women's A national team down, and coach education comes under that. The pathways that are all within football development into our elite academies here in Scotland. So as well as that, looking after some of the goalkeeping coaches at the clubs in a kind of mentoring scheme. So a whole number of different areas. Again, we'll have some areas we'll speak about tonight, and I believe there'll be a chance to ask some questions later as well. So really, I'll give you a snapshot of a couple of areas. I'll give you as much detail as I can, and hopefully we all manage to get something from it from there. So if I just kind of give you these three areas that we're looking to discuss. So first and foremost, we always hear a lot of people ask about developing the goalkeepers through the different phases. I believe down south it's called the Foundation, Youth and Senior. So we'll stick with that kind of terminology at this moment in time. Up in Scotland, we tend to call it as the children's section, the youth section, and we still use the senior section in our academy as well. We'll speak a little bit about the goalkeeping coach's role, how I see that developing over the years that I've been working. And then again, we'll touch on some of the psychological effects and maybe the demands of the position as I see it as well. So they're the kind of three main areas, but again, within goalkeeping, it's such a vast area that there's a lot of different things come under the same areas, and you'll probably hear me kind of dovetailing at different moments. So as I said, the first area we're looking at is developing the goalkeepers within that foundation phase, and it's probably the most important phase, because that's where, personally speaking, you will build that young goalkeeper. And the biggest thing you're trying to do here is give them the building blocks, the tools that you can in place to, when they're later in their career or they're later in their development, that they then have that base to work from. So I always work from a technical base, and you might be sitting there going, right, what is that technical base? That is simply ensuring that the goalkeepers can catch it, they can kick it, they can throw it, they know how to set. They're building from the back in terms of distribution. They can pass it, they can kick it from their hands. Whatever you deem to be the most important parts of the position, then they have that base within them, and you build that over a period of time, and just try and kind of smooth the technical parts of it as best you possibly can. So when it becomes then about matches and decision making, as I'll speak about later, they've got that base, and you don't need to spend time always focusing on technique, because you've now got them to a point the technique's there. Now we'll start to add them the other parts of the game. The biggest thing I find within it is got to be put across in a fun way. Can you hide practices that are maybe more demanding? Can you hide it in a fun way? Can you hide coaching in a fun way so it's not always stop-start? I find that extremely important, that the kids sometimes, they just see themselves in a goal diving around and they're delighted with that, whereas you have designed it in a certain way that they don't realise that you've set it up to be technical. They're just diving about in a goal. But you, in your mind, you're piecing together those processes that will go into building that base I've spoken about. And probably one of the biggest things that I'm now big on when I speak openly with players, with coaches, is to start building that relationship with the young child, the young kid. And that's simply because you can have a massive impact on their life. And I really do believe, and if you can develop the person, the player tends to look after themselves. And if you can create that environment where they feel safe, of all the legislation that's there, they've got to come and feel safe. I totally understand that, but safe to make mistakes, safe to speak to you, safe to speak up if they don't agree with something, safe to have a discussion. So it's about creating that environment that they want to come back to it every single time. So that goes back to that fun aspect of it, that every time they leave you, they're desperate to come back and do something else. You maybe you tailor your session to just leaving that little bit there for them, so they're always wanting more, if that makes sense. And the biggest thing again can be how you remove fear for them, especially at that young age where coordination might not be right, there might be a bit smaller, there's a lot of things going on. So you're looking, how can I remove the fear? How can I build confidence within them? And certainly things that I do to try and help with that is a lot of the practices at this stage are never done inside a goal. I never work inside the goal, and that's simply to remove the fear of the goal behind them, to remove the consequence of them losing goals. So for example, if I'm going to work on a handling exercise, if they miss it and it goes in the goal, I don't want that feeling in training because I'm trying to build their confidence. So I just take that out of the equation and we work at the side of the goal because I'm only trying to develop their technique. And then when I feel it's ready, then I might bring the goal into play. And that's, maybe I'll speak about that later on. But generally within the foundation phase, the biggest things for me is about how we can build that technical base within the young goalkeeper, so that when it becomes about decision making and positional play and tactical things, he's got the attributes there that he can just go and apply in that moment of the game, and he's worked through that. So they tend to be the four biggest things. If I was working, when I've worked in that phase of academies previously, they are the things that I stick to. People will ask me themes and different things. That all gets built, I'll speak about it a bit later, that all gets built from a profile I would have of the goalkeeper at that club. If I take one of our clubs here in Scotland, let's take Celtic for example, I'm going to want to ensure my goalkeeper can build for the back. He's going to have good levels of concentration. I want him to be someone who has a high standard in terms of quality of his hands, quality of his feet, his shape, all these things. So when I theme those things together, it's a very watered down version. But at this moment in time, you're looking to try and go and look at what is the first team goalkeeper doing at this moment in time that makes him successful, and how do I strip that right back to its simplest form. And you'll find that is catching, it's diving, it's throwing, it's passing, it's jumping to catch high ball, and it's just then I go, right, how do I piece that together in a fun way? I make it personal between me and the kid, and I look after him. And then at all times, I'm looking to use that to build their confidence. If I take that just a stage further, and I'm then looking now the youth phase, so come with me in this wee journey here. So you've built them up now, you're looking at them, that kind of 9, 10, 11, possibly 12, you've just hammered technique with them. You've hammered technique. And the reason now I start to go more on the game is because what you might find at this phase, and it's just through maturation and different things happening, they might lose technique, but believe me, they will get that technique back. So I trust that process, and I then go, right, I've hit them with the technique. They've got that kind of, people speak about muscle memory and different things. They've learned the movements, they know the movement patterns. So now I'm going to teach you about the game a little bit. I'm going to use this period now to teach you about the positional play, because that becomes really important for me. That I really find the game at the highest level is all about the positions you take up and the decisions you then make. That will have the biggest impact on your performance in the game. So that's where we try and teach them about that at this moment. And that's about how can I always get you in the right position for that moment of the game, and how can I get you making more right decisions than wrong decisions. And that's done through training practices. Just tinkering training practices to become less technical and far more open-based, and maybe functional practices or game-related practices, as you might call them. How can I just start to tweak them a bit so that the outcomes of that session become a little bit different? And now I've built that relationship with the goalkeeper. Now I'm looking to build that trust with them, that they trust in the information I'm giving them, the knowledge I'm giving them, the process that I work to. They understand that now the important parts are the positional side of things, or the decision-making side of things, because that's going to have a big impact. But I need to build that trust, and that comes from how I was with them when they were younger. And they remember you as that guy wants to help me all the time. He's there to help me. He's there to make me better. And once they know that, they open up, and that's, again, I'll go back to it, you start to develop that person as well as the player, and the player starts to take care of themselves. And the biggest thing that then comes in, as I spoke about it there with the maturation side of it, is managing those transitions. Up here in Scotland right now, our player pathway is they will play 5-a-sides, which is there's 5-a-sides, which is there doesn't have to be a designated goalkeeper. You could have a goalkeeper, you don't have to be. You can just play with a back player who can stop the ball. Then it goes into 7-a-sides where there must be a goalkeeper, and they're designated, and that's their role in the team. Then it moves into 9-a-sides, and then it goes into 11-a-sides. So it's understanding the transitions that the goalkeeper will go through. You know, how do the demands of the game differ from 7-a-side to 9-a-side to 11-a-side? What changes? How does a goalkeeper change as he goes through each phase? How are the players changing that he's playing with? What different demands are they now asking of the goalkeeper when he plays in the games? And I think that's probably the biggest advice I can give you, is probably to understand the games that the goalkeepers are playing in. Because I hear a lot of people speak about, for example, take the Premier League in England, and here's all the stats of the Premier League, and everybody's playing with the ball more at their feet, and these are the types of saves people are. That's great, but that's for the Premier League in England that's happening. You've got to look into your goalkeeper and go, well, what's happening with him now in the under-14s league in Newcastle, for example? Because that's the games he's playing in, that's the players he's playing against. So you've now got to look at it in that context. Maybe understanding that as the current themes of the game, but how does it now apply to them in this moment, at this time, and the level that they're playing at, and I make it really specific to them and their moment and their team. And going back to working within an academy system, sometimes that can be really hard because you're working with goalkeepers from under 9s to 18s. So how do you piece that together? And it's just about taking time to become specific. Even when you maybe have, for example, a 14s, a 15s, a 16s, a 17s goalkeeper in the one session, it's just then taking a bit of time. You can still all develop them individually within the same session. It's just taking time to map that out. Some sessions might be tailored to what's more important, or maybe a couple of the same needs, so you tailor it that way, or you find there's a lot of crossover that you're just maybe changing the demands, or what you're asking becomes a little bit different, or the information you're given just becomes different. And I find that's probably the biggest thing that will change as you go up the levels. It's just probably more information you'll give them. Whereas when they're younger, I find less is more, and you just go really clear, really specific. Then as they become older, then you can start to just put some more detail onto things. But certainly they're the kind of 4 main areas that I would look at as they move into that youth phase. And that's really because I find that's where coordination starts to disappear. You'll look at them, they become gangly, the big sprout comes, and you think, oh my God, what's happened? And it's just about being calm in that moment and go, right, I'll use that time to teach them about the game, so that when their technique and everything comes back, I've now got somebody who's ready to go into that senior phase, and what that will throw up as well. So if I just flick it on to the senior phase of things.
Just a couple of questions on that.
Yeah, George, go for it.
I guess the first one is something that I had, would going from the 5v5, where there's not a specified keeper, into the 7v7, is that kind of when you're looking to specialise a player into that position, or you're still working in those smaller sides and having players kind of rotate in and out and pick up those different techniques as well?
Sure. What I tend to find, George, is that there's a lot of rotation goes on. There's a lot of rotation to find the kid who attaches himself to that position and likes it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you have a kid like myself who was just really poor outfield, so that was just, I tended to stay there. I started up front, and I wasn't good enough there, so I went in the middle of the pitch. Wasn't good enough there, went to centre back, and then just to stay in a bit of football, I thought, well, I may as well try goalkeeping because there's nothing else. So, yeah. But no, there's so many different ways. You might have that natural kid who, the minute you see them, they just move. They've got a naturalness about them that just their hand-eye coordination works to stop the ball. Their movements are fluid at that young age, and you go, no, do you know what? I'm going to stick with that because, and I know people speak about early specialisation and stuff, but if you've got a kid that loves it that much, who am I to take that away from them and just let them go and embrace it? And then, as I said, in Scotland, when it becomes 7v7, they tend to then become that part of the team. But again, I've known of 7-a-side teams who still rotate because they've just not found that one yet. I've done a number of things up here in Scotland where just helping coaches maybe more understand, go and try a little hand-eye coordination session that might just help you identify someone who's got a little skill set, and you're only maybe looking for someone whose hands and eyes can work quite well, they can move in relation to the ball, and then you go, well, there's something to start it, and then you build it from there.
Brilliant. And then we had another question that was sent in from Michael. And how do we address goalkeepers who start, U12, U13, but they don't have that technical background?
Yeah. Generally, from there, I just strip it right back. So again, I've had it in academies up here in Scotland where sometimes I find everybody's desperate to make sure when they come into the academy they've got to be perfect right away. That's just not going to happen. You've got to be realistic and go, right, what have they got? What do they need to get? But how much time have I got to give that to them? And that's trusting yourself as a coach. And that's the one thing I've always done when I've worked up here in Scotland, is I've always backed myself to go, right, if he's coming in at age 12, as you're saying there, George, I don't need him to be ready until he's 18. So give me the 6 years. I trust myself as a coach. I back myself as a coach. In those 6 years, I will get him to the level. If I can get all those things, if I can build that relationship, if I can get him doing what I want to do, then fine. But there's sometimes maybe you look at it, if they're a bit older and you go, I've just not got the time to get everything he needs. And that's the difficult discussion at that point. But certainly when they're younger, I really do trust myself as a coach. Go, no, I've got the time. I've got time on my side to develop those technical aspects, and it'll all come down to looking at them. And if it's small things, then fine, I might fix it. But there's sometimes somebody's technique might not be. You get coaching manuals that say step 1 to 2, or sorry, steps 1 to 5 of catching a ball is this, 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 and this. A goalkeeper might do none of that and still catch it. So then I just leave it and go, well, he's successful and he catches the ball. You look at the variety in goalkeeping, you look at the Premier League at this moment in time, you take Alisson to Ederson to De Gea to Lloris, they are all different. They've all got different strengths, weaknesses, techniques of doing things. So then it might be about looking at the techniques they have and going, well, he is successful with it, so let it be. And I'll look at the other areas of his game that are not successful, and I'll try and improve those areas, if that helps.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Brilliant, good. So as we move into the senior phase, probably what we're finding up here in Scotland, I don't know, luckily in the role I'm at now, I speak to some of the coaches in England, and I know having a discussion with some coaches in England, they see this as a big gap area as well, where for whatever reason, this is a big bit they seem to fall down on. Coming from that senior phase of the academy to try and bridge the gap into a first team becomes so difficult. And I'll speak about what I'm trying to change up here in Scotland that I think's becoming a big issue for it. But the first thing I try and get them to understand is the demands of the game. And that's what I spoke about just earlier there, about it's got to be the demands of the game that they are playing in. And that sometimes is maybe taking the head coach of the under-18s or the head coach of the under-19s and explaining to them, look, he doesn't have to be Hugo Lloris right now. He's 18. What was Hugo Lloris like at 18? I don't know. Well, then, how do you know what he needs to be at 18? I always used to say that to coaches, let them be. Let them make mistakes. Let them deal with the mistake. Our job's to help them through it. But we've got to teach them about, here are the demands of the game. The game demands whatever it demands. And that is the standard I'll hold you to in training, because that's how I'm going to get your level of performance in the game up. So first and foremost, I've got to understand, if I speak about here in Scotland, we have an under-18s league and we have a reserve league. So I'd speak to them and go, that's the demands of the 18s league, there's the demands of the reserve league, and you need to match those demands as a goalkeeper. And our job's to help you do that. The biggest thing I find at this phase, it's now about playing games, because you've gave them all the tools, you've gave them everything, you've built that base, you've now taught them about the game. Now they've just got to go and experience it, and that's playing as many games as they can, and it is making as many decisions as possible. And that's the biggest thing I find between a young pro at 18, 19 and a senior pro at 35. What's the biggest difference? They've just played more games. They know how to handle situations differently or better, because they've played more games. It tells them, in that situation, do this. So we've got to give that young goalkeeper that opportunity as early as we can get it. And that's one thing I'm doing up here in Scotland at the moment, is trying to get more of our younger academy goalkeepers around the 18 age, 18, 19, 20, out on loan, because I really do feel a season in the under 18s is enough. Or maybe you fast track them because you've watched them for 6 months and you go, he's above the level, he needs a new challenge, and I need to find what that challenge is. And that might be the non-league system here in Scotland. It might be the lower levels of our professional leagues, and I find that challenge for them. I mean, that's certainly something that if you can look at the screen there, young Robbie McCrory, whose picture I've put in there, he's went through that pathway. He, at the age of 19, I think it was 1920, he went on loan to Berwick Rangers in League 2, which is our lowest professional league. Then he went on loan to Morton. He kind of jumped a league and went to the Championship, done very well. He then took another loan in that league to Queen of the South. And then within 6 months, a team in the Premier League had came in. A coach I know very well, Tony Craig, had asked me, do I think he can handle the level? I felt he could. And he then goes and plays in the Premier League. But he needs that grounding first of those games at that level. And that's certainly something I've not used as a test case, but it's certainly now helped me to understand number of appearances at a certain age level. So, for example, I speak to our 3 under-21 goalkeepers at the moment. Can they reach potentially 100 appearances for any club in the senior game at the age of 21? And in that, I think that gives them just a chance of a career. Whether it's at the top end or whether it's wherever they go, I think it gives them a chance, because what I find is you finish in the academy system with no experience. Lower league managers are maybe not so keen to take them because that experience isn't there. So you've got to find a way of getting them that experience, if that makes sense. And the biggest thing is honesty. Honesty as a coach, honesty as a person, honesty within the group of goalkeepers that you work with. And that's just about, where do you see them? Where do you see them going? What do they need to get better at? What's going to help them make it to the next level? What's going to stop them? And it's so important you have those conversations at all levels of the game. And it's just, they might not like it, but I'll guarantee it, it's what they want to hear at whatever moment. And any senior goalkeeper I work with now, everything's about honesty. That's just what I see at this moment in time. And I think, yeah, you might have a harsh conversation at that moment in time, but I think they prefer that, and I think they respect that more because it's an honesty. Again, that comes from the trust built as well. You know, all across those age levels, all across those years, if you've built that relationship, then the respect's already there. And the biggest thing I'm finding now is about how we get them to deal with success and failure. A lot of people speak to me about, oh, how do you deal with mistakes? Dealing with mistakes is just simply built through time, and it's then about getting them to just go again. But there's also a big thing about dealing with success. You know, if they become really successful in a quick period of time. So, for example, young Robbie McCrory has just found himself in our national team, our men's A national team, in the last week. But we've got to make sure he handles that properly. Doesn't go to his head. He doesn't stop working hard. He doesn't forget all the things that got him to that point, because he's got to keep doing them. So I'm crucial to find that you've also got to understand that they realise what's got them successful, and they need to realise how you manage that success and failure. And it's really just about never getting too high with the highs and never getting too low with the lows. You can try and keep them in that optimum middle ground, if that makes sense. So again, they're the 4 biggest things I find in the kind of senior phase of the academy goalkeeper, if that makes sense. So they would be the kind of 4 biggest areas I would look to try and utilise within an academy if I was working there, if that makes sense. And how we go about doing that within here in Scotland, just giving you an insight to how we piece that together. At the bottom of the screen there, you see we have put in our performance schools. They are, for anybody who doesn't know what they are, we have 7 regional schools in Scotland where players come and train effectively full time. They're based at that school, and they work in that programme for 4 years. They train as a goalkeeper every day. They get a goalkeeping session, I think it's twice a week they get that. But they play with their club. You know, they're not our players. They just train with us during the day. They train with their club at night, and they play with their club at the weekend. And again, everything's in partnership and relationship with the club. So we speak to the clubs about What's their weaknesses? We'll help you make their weaknesses better. Where can we help them improve? So everything's built in relationship with the club. And then they filter in through where age levels there, the 16s, 17s, 18s, 19s, 21s A squad. But again, the biggest thing that I say to the young goalkeepers we have in our system, no one's pathway is the same. So we might have a kid comes in at the performance schools and gets to the A squad, magnificent. But we might also have someone whose first introduction is at the 21s because they just weren't ready at the age 12 to go into that school or move away for their friends. That is absolutely fine. But the biggest thing we've got to do is know who they are, have a handle on them. Again, still have a relationship with them. So when you're in and about those clubs, you know who they are, you can speak to them, so that personal touch is there. And more what we're finding is down south at the Premier League or the Football League, you know, there's another couple of young goalkeepers coming up there for us. We've had a number over the years. So again, we're finding that another area that we've got to try and develop. And how we do that is going down and speaking to the clubs, going down and speaking to the goalkeepers, their families, where we can see them fitting in. And again, it's just speaking about that honesty of here's where we see at the moment, here's where we might potentially try and fit you in. And it's about that sorry, that relationship being developed for that moment. And then just where we can try and piece them in together, if that makes sense. So although people say national teams, it's very hard to create a development programme, it is there to an extent. It's just how you manage the whole thing and you keep the relationships is what I find the most important. How we try and do that within our national team squads, the performance skills you can see there, it's all about building key habits. Now I'll speak to you about that. I'm not talking technique there. And this is the biggest thing I've tried to change, is what I'm finding is, again, the group that's with us tonight, think of your experiences. How many times have you heard terrific young goalkeeper, didn't work hard enough? Terrific talent, just too lazy. Terrific talent, didn't listen. Terrific talent, I'm trying to think of another one, couldn't handle mistakes, etc. The list could go on and on. So what I'm finding is, I really do think now I've flipped it and I'm going to try and develop their attitude first, because I've got more time to develop the technique. And that's again me backing and trusting myself as a coach. So at the very start within the performance skills, we teach them key habits. Never give up. You work your hardest every day. How respectful you need to be. When we always paint a picture of they've got to work harder than someone they can't see. That's the wee challenge we give them. So they can't see how hard someone in Aberdeen is working and they live in Glasgow. They don't know how hard he's working. They don't know how good he is. They can't see how hard he's working. So they've got to find a way of beating it. You know, it's a wee challenge. We set them something fun again. But the biggest thing is we develop the key habits first, the behaviours first. Then we'll start to bring in the playing stuff. And they'll pick up the technique stuff. We're just lucky because they're still at clubs, so they pick up the technical stuff from the club. Now what we are saying to them here at this programme is, here's how to start your career as a footballer. Here are the biggest things you're going to need to have, which I'll speak about in a short second. Then as they come into our national team programme, we just speak to them a couple of things, not a lot, about think of these things when you're in possession, think of these things when you're out of possession, and that's it. Just to give them an idea of that. Then as they come away the next age group, then we'll start to again just try and tease out some tactical awareness within them. How can they ensure on the pitch that our team's carrying out the game plan as to what the coaches have asked for? Or how can they spot certain things happening? How can they understand different things from the game? How can they affect the game from their positional play? And then as they get to 18 and 19, it's about then getting them to understand, how do you put a performance together to help your team try and win? And that's the biggest thing I speak to the young goalkeepers at that age group, is just about how can you put a 90-minute performance together, not a 45, not 50, not 60. What goes into piecing that performance together? And then when it comes to the 21s level and the men's national team, it's performing to win at that point. And that's where it just slightly changes to turning up to being at a standard, and you're turning up there to perform and win. And that's what we're looking for. So that's how we try and piece it together through the age levels, if that makes sense. Things that we're maybe looking for within that, so certain characteristics that we might look for. I'm not going to go through loads of these. I'm just going to speak quickly. So we speak of 4 A's. First one being the ability. Everybody will have different thoughts. We split it into in possession and out of possession. So when you are in possession of the ball, these are the things at the highest level. So this is me talking about men's national team. These are the things you're going to have to be able to do. Am I looking for a 12-year-old to be able to do that? Absolutely not. I might take one. So I might look at that and go, when I'm in possession of the ball, scanning and variety of the pass are the most important for me, because that's what's the most important at the A squad. So I'll develop that first. Then when they become 13, 14, I'll maybe look at the pass back and I'll develop a throw. 15, 16, then I'll look at kicking free hand, or I'll look at accuracy of longer kicks. Or I might leave that until they've got the full strength in their legs. So I just piece that together with the goalkeeper that's in front of me. And again, that's ever changing. But it's always at the level I see that goalkeeper at. Never too high, never too low. Trying to, again, just keep it in the middle. And very similarly, out of possession, what things are you going to have to be able to do to a decent standard? There's the areas there on the screen. And again, what I'm looking for at different age levels and different points within our pathway, that all comes down to the standard accepted. You know, young kid at 12, 13, it might just be about getting them familiar with how to catch it. For example, last week when I was with our under-21s group, I'm ensuring that they catch almost every ball in the session. And that's the standard I push, but I would never push that at age 12. It's more about teaching them how to catch it. When I'm with the under-21s, my standard is, no, everything's caught. That's the standard we're looking for. We want a high level of performance within training, and that's how it differs, if that makes sense. Just taking it on a bit, the awareness side, which is just tactical. Again, splitting it in possession. Here's the things we need you to be thinking about. So as they start to come into potentially the under-16s national team, we might just speak to them about, please just make it individual just now. Think about your positional play. Can you maybe anticipate certain things happening, and always make sure you're supporting the play? That's it. Can you get those three things? Then we work over a period of time. Then we look at looking at the next three or the next two or whatever. Again, all individual based to the goalkeeper that's playing at that time. And again, similarly with the out of possession, the same things. Can you look at positional play? Again, the transitions, how you react to those transitions, and can you help coordinate with press? That might be it. Again, as I get older, 21s last night when we're playing, and I'm speaking with young Ross Doohan, I'm maybe asking more from him, because I expect that from him now. Whereas the younger they are, I'm not expecting anything. I'm just asking them to try and think of these things when they're in the game. Probably sometimes the hardest bits, the athleticism side, that physical side. How much impact can I have in that area? Not so sure. It's really difficult. Sometimes the body they've got, you can't change that. You can't control that. So you've got to try and make it the best you possibly can. I tend to leave the strength, the power, all those things right to the end until they have grew, and then they fit into that body. I leave it, and then I start to introduce the strength and the power, because that's when they've fully developed. Things I might introduce right at the start is that flexibility, the agility side of it, the quick feet side of it, the reaction side of it. Absolutely, I can go and work on those things. So there's what I work on when they're youngest. And then again, it's just about looking to the goalkeeper that's in front of me. What's the next wee bit I can add? Where's the next gain I can get from them? And the last bit I'm just about to speak to you about is attitude. And this is now what I'm finding. These points here, I try as hard as I can to develop that first. Because any of those areas is where I feel in that senior phase, that's what lets them down. Terrific talent, poor work ethic. Terrific talent, couldn't handle setbacks. Terrific talent, fell out of love with the game. Terrific talent, just wouldn't give up things at the right time to become the best player. So now I teach them about these things first. Because what I think is that's basically I sit that in front of them and say, that's what's going to stop you. That's what's going to stop you having the career you want. So it's up to you. It's up to you. And at the right age, I speak to them about this. I speak to them about accountability. It's at a certain point, I've done all I can as the coach. The parents have done all they can as parents. The sports scientists have done all they can. It's now on you. Your accountability. It's you that's going to decide how hard you work. It's you that's going to decide whether you prepare properly. It's you that's going to decide whether you watch the analysis or don't watch it. It's you that then controls your performance on the pitch. So at the right age, I then put it all on them. That's maybe depending on where they are as a person. It could be 15, it could be 16, it could be 17. It's where I feel they've matured, and I go, right, it's on you now. I'm always here for you, but now everything's on you. If you want it, you go and get it, and I'll help you as much as I possibly can. So again, that's just a little insight to areas that I look at, how I try and piece it together. And again, I keep coming back to that bottom right-hand section there. That section in the bottom right-hand part of the screen on attitude is the biggest thing for me. If I can get that right, and again, it goes back to developing the person before the player. I think everything else comes naturally with just playing games and coaching sessions and everything else. And I think it's an area that's sometimes underdeveloped, if that makes sense. All right,
Yeah,
and
no,
again,
great.
that. Yep, on you
Just
go.
one from me, Fraser. I think it's great you've touched on accountability. What ways do you best encourage accountability with a player?
Sorry, say that again.
What ways would you best encourage accountability
Sure.
with a player?
So for example, ways we might do that, even just very simply in our performance schools, for example, they have to turn up, with every part of their kit to train. If they don't train. That's your kit. It's your bag. It's your kit. You look after that kit. It's got to be with you. That's there. Accountability, daft wee things. This is just me. I want my goalkeepers to be the first at the pitch and the last to leave. Just daft wee things. You're in charge. Oh, but so and so was having a laugh in the change room, and I wanted to know what he was laughing about. Great, but it made you late. I don't care. You're here to work. So you start it from, you have fun with it, of course, but you start it at that first stage, right there, I get into them at that moment, and then I just start drip feeding it in, and it becomes a little bit more serious each time. For example, session starts maybe in an academy, they're 14, 15, they've got their prehab exercises to do with all the resistance bands or foam rolling. My session might start at 6 o'clock. So you've got to be in the building, you've got to done all your prehab before 6 starts, because if you're not on the pitch at 6, no my problem, because that's your time to get you ready for your session, if that makes sense. For example, speaking about the 21s, when I sit with them at their level, we piece together the analysis. I used to sit with them and I would talk through it, and I would go, but I've kind of changed. More so, sometimes I'm thinking, how much of this do they want? So I put it on them. Guys, there's all the analysis there. That's what you're going to face. So, for example, Lithuania last night, I gave Ross and the other two goalkeepers everything that I thought was going to come up in the game, put it on their mobile phones. That's then up to them. And I maybe just ask them things throughout the week. Did you watch the set pieces? What are you thinking? What are you thinking about their press? And I just use it to just gauge, have they actually watched it? Have they not watched it? And it just tells me about their mentality. Do they want to be the best? Because I know the best do that. And it's just daft wee things like that, trying to think about, do they even
That's
just
interesting. Sorry, go on.
do they take accountability for their performance first and foremost? Are they somebody who makes excuses? But he never done it. I know he never done that, but that doesn't affect you. What did you do? You gave up. So daft wee things, like I was talking to, we took a younger goalkeeper away with us on this last trip there, and I found he would give up in shots at shooting, because it's this thing of, but it's shooting and it's not really for the goalies. I don't believe in that. Your job's to find saves in there somewhere. If I see you losing 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 in a row, I'm looking for you to save the 5th, and I don't care how you save it, because it just teaches me that you've got the mentality to go, nah, I need to make a save. So it's just wee things like that, and you through a coaching session or a game, you'll find the moments to do that. And again, I just find it better to put it back on the player, because it's their career. It is their career, if that makes sense.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Just let me flick that on again. And the biggest thing, taking that a stage further, we're very lucky in Scotland, or we were very lucky in Scotland. We felt we had 3 extremely good goalkeepers in David Marshall, Alan McGregor, Craig Gordon. All played down south, all played at the highest level down south. We feel they were of a high standard, and it's something that we now use. The 3 of them are terrific characters, in that they help somebody like myself in the role I'm in at this moment in time. They're always there to give their experience and knowledge to the younger goalkeepers, and these are the things they speak about. Managing your lifestyle, never being Maybe not so much Alan McGregor, but never being in the press, never being having that to have a negative impact on you. Your diet being the best it possibly can. Your preparation to everything, your preparation to the game, to training, to analysis, to everything about it, and that ultimate mentality to wanting to be the best, that drive to succeed continuously. If you lose that, I think it just starts to fall apart. And again, these are if you're speaking to guys of that level, they are the 4 things that always seem to come up. And again, that's that accountability. A young goalkeeper can control those 4 things, and we put that on them to do that. Flicking it on again, it's just something I like to use. Everybody sees that top bit. You know, they see Hugo Lloris on All or Nothing at this moment in time as the captain of the club, and that looks great. That is brilliant. But even if you look at his season, that terrible injury goes through, he will have all of the bottom of that iceberg to get through that injury, to come back to being at the level he was at the end of the season there. So it's about teaching these young kids, here are all the things that you need, and nobody will see you doing it. And that's why we do the little example I gave you with performance schools of getting them to be better than someone they can't see, because you need to have that about you. You know, there was forgive me, during lockdown I was quite sad and read books and watched documentaries and everything else. I can't remember the athlete, but the athlete spoke about he used to always train through the festive period because all of his competitors stopped. He knew they had a break. He didn't have that break. And he spoke about that's where he got his edge. That was his time to get ahead of them. And that's always something I speak to the young goalkeepers about. Even last night I was speaking to one of the young goalkeepers who was slightly frustrated. He's went out on loan, he's not playing. And I've spoken to him about, you've now got to go and do more than the guy that's playing. If he's half an hour in the gym, you're 40 minutes. You know, if he's getting X on a yo-yo test, you need to get more. You need to do more than what he's doing, so that when your chance comes, you're ready to take it. Because in goalkeeping, you don't know when that chance is going to come. It always comes up unexpectedly. And again, it's just painting that picture for them, that all these things underneath there must come, and then you'll get all the success. You'll get everything you want if you put all these things in place at the bottom there. And just finishing on what we see as qualities as a goalkeeping coach, how can I as a coach ensure that all that comes together? First and foremost, it's about assessing the needs of the group I've got. So for example, whatever group of goalkeepers I'm working with, my first job is to assess their needs. What do they need from me? What can I give them? What's the needs of the club? What's the needs of the goalkeepers? The needs of the coach? How can I provide what they want? How do I inspire confidence? How do I inspire that never give up attitude? How all the things that I want them to be, how can I inspire that within them? Once I know the needs of the goalkeeper, how can I ensure they get it? How can I ensure I meet that? If they want something, I give them it. How can I ensure that's done to a standard? Remaining committed to everything that I'm doing. If I've committed to something, I see it through. You know, if I've committed to a project where I've spoke about that young 12-year-old kid, no, I've made a commitment. I trust myself as a coach. By 18, we'll make a decision, not by 14, not by 15, 18, unless there is something serious that we think, no, he's not at the level. Being assertive to just sometimes make a decision. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is be indecisive. As a coach, just make a decision as you would speak to a player. Make a decision and you'll learn from the decision. And then you see if it was the right or wrong decision to make. Bring humour to it, because sometimes it needs it. Sometimes it can be a very pressured position and you've just got to relax it at some points. I know working with our women's team, the goalkeepers there sometimes get very hung up on things. They get very pressured in certain things, and sometimes I just have a laugh with them. You know, I might just go out before, for example, one of the games, before we qualified the World Cup, I could sense tension. So I just went out and had a laugh in the warm-up to just relax them, because I didn't want them getting into the game feeling like that. And that's, again, that's part of your role, to spot these things. The passion you have for the position must come out of you every day, every moment, every session. You live and breathe it, you bring it out in you. And then your goalkeepers then live off that, they feel off it. Being interesting to find out new things, going and want to know new things, having conversation with players, having conversations away from the game, just make things interesting. How can I make analysis interesting? Because the last thing you want analysis to be is that goalkeeper sitting in front of you going, oh, here we go again. What did I not do right this time? I don't want that. I want them to think, how can I get better? How can I inspire conversation here? How can I use my goalkeeping group to almost make this far more interactive, if that makes sense? And how can I continually show respect to the staff, to the players, to everyone that I'm working with? Once I show that respect, then I think you get it back. And the sessional side of things, being organised in everything you do, being as prepared as you can as a coach is the first thing. Being as professional as you possibly can at everything you're doing. And that one I spoke about earlier, being honest in everything. That honesty that you bring to things. Being approachable, that the goalkeepers can speak to you about absolutely anything in life, just in general. You know, have those conversations. If you notice something that he's maybe not trained to a level that day, it could be something at home that stopped that happening. Something at school, he's had a bad day at school, he comes to your session, he's still feeling bad. I need to take that away from it. At all times being supportive through all the different phases we've spoke about earlier. They're going to need your support, be there for them. Be confident in yourself, be confident in your process as a coach, be confident in your knowledge, be confident in your manner, be confident in how you see the position being, and deliver that. Be desperate to learn, be personable with them, find things out, as I spoke about. That enthusiasm should naturally come, because then the goalkeepers feel from you on that. And the biggest thing is being open-minded. Being open-minded. That can be something like, I might spot something. So, for example, I might have seen something in the game last night. Ross Doohan doesn't see it the same way. That's not to say he's right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and he's wrong. It's then about going, right, how do I ensure I bring that closer together? Here's how I'm seeing it. Here's how you're seeing it. How do we get to the right conclusion here? And it's about piecing that together. And that comes back to being personable, the relationship I've got with him, how I support him, all these different things. Being confident in how I put that across all comes back to that. And if you're an outfield coach sitting watching in, a goalie coach is the same as you. They're no different. They're no different. It's just they've maybe got a specific set of skills, or they're more individualised in their coaching. That's it. But all the skills that you are as a manager or an outfield coach should be the exact same. If that makes sense. I've got one kind of last slide to show here, and it's just a very pieced together slide on the role as I see it. So I'll just stay with me, and I'll talk you through it. It goes in a wee quick journey. So first and foremost, I have a profile in my head when I work with goalkeepers. That's just how I work. So I have a way of how I want Scottish goalkeepers to be. My job's to make sure I give them the opportunity to be like that. Once I've got that profile in my head, that's how it influences me within my scouting. So the goalkeepers we bring into our squads should have the potential to fit that profile. They might not all be that profile when they bring them in, but all I'm saying is I think they've got the potential to be this type of goalkeeper. And then that's why we work with them. The next stage to that is sitting with them, meeting with them, mapping out their journey with them. For example, sitting with the 21s at the start of last week. Here's what's coming. Here's the opposition. Here's what I'm looking for. And it might be at the start of the campaign. You set your standards for the season. There's my year plan. There's my month's plan. So, for example, in my role just now, I work out where all the squads are going, where can we play the goalkeepers, who could play what game to a point. Yes, injuries and different things might influence that, performance might influence that, but at least there's a plan there. There's a plan to do that. Then it fits into a monthly plan. Then I have a development plan. Now I've got it. And then what do I look for within that development plan? It's the 4 A's, or you can call it technical, tactical, physical, psychological. How can I develop them in those 4 areas? Is that through practice development, or is it through game development? What's more important? Is it more important I work with it on the pitch, or are they going to get that from games? And then there's my week. That all filters into my week when I'm working. Then for there, how much time do I spend working with my team, my goalies, focusing on our team, our strengths? This is what we do. But how much time do I give to the opposition? So last week when I'm working with the 21s, how much time do I give to preparing them and how I want them to play as a Scottish goalkeeper? But then there's got to become a moment that we look at Lithuania. Here's what they do. Here's their threats. Here's the opportunities they might bring to try and hurt us. We've got to be ready for that. Then comes the game. I have a certain role when that game is getting played. We might speak about that later. I have a role within that. You carry that out. flying home last night, you're looking at the laptop, you're looking at the game again. How do I evaluate it? How did my goalkeepers do? Did I get out of what I want? To be fair to Ross in the game, he done extremely well. He done what I needed. So then you're delighted with him, and you sit with him and you go, great, here's the bits we're happy with, and then you send him away to his club with just something else. Here's the next stage I need you coming back with. So the challenge I gave to him was, can you go and get yourself in your club side? You need to get in the team. You've came here and showed you can perform. You need to try and get into your club side, and that's the challenge I've went and gave him. And then the last wee bit is then about how do I pull everything together from the outside, managing their lifestyle, helping them manage their lifestyle, building a relationship with them, building a relationship with the staff, working on the video analysis, as I said, dealing with the press because it's important. You know, for example, he didn't, but say Ross had made a mistake last night. Can I speak to the manager to not mention it in the press? Can I speak to our press officer to try and get that out of the way so he doesn't get a double done, if that makes sense? And again, as I spoke about earlier this evening, dealing with success and dealing with failure are big things for me. How can I keep them just at that optimum level? Never too high, never too low, if that makes sense. All right. Guys, just to round off, thank you very much. I hope there's been something there for all of you. If not, then I apologise for wasting 50 odd minutes of your time. But there you go. Just some messages from me. Please just be the best you can. Be the best you can for the goalkeepers you're working with in everything you do, because they will see it. If they see you being the best you can, they will see it and they will give you their best. Care about what you do. Care about the setup of your pitch. Care about your quality as a coach. Care about how you come across. Care about your goalkeepers. And again, they'll see it and they'll give you it back. Love what you do. So important that you love what you do. And you can make a difference in a player's life. You can absolutely make a difference in a player's life. And I find that a big thing. And then enjoy it and love the game. Love the game and enjoy it, if that makes sense. All right, and there's just a last wee bit. Those takeaway messages are there. And I'd said to the guys on the right-hand side there, my email address is there, and also my Twitter. If you ever need anything from myself, from the Scottish FA in terms of coach education, please just get in touch with me. I'll help you in any way I possibly can. I'm a people person. I like speaking to people. I like helping people. Anything I can do for you, I'll try. We've been quite adventurous with the Scottish FA this last couple of months, where we've put a lot of our coach education online. So if you ever feel it's something that you want to find out more about, please get in touch with me. I'll help you. But apart from that, thanks to the two boys. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on tonight and speak to you. And as I said, hopefully you've took something from it. And I apologise if you haven't, but fingers crossed you have. So if you ever want me, please just get in touch. And that's us. That's us, guys. If there's anything MD's looking to ask.
Yeah,
I think
you
one question.
Oh, Savita, you go on. Sorry, George.
Yeah, I think we have one question.
Sure.
And he just asked whether you work with the defenders so they better understand the needs of the goalkeepers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's something that when I was a younger coach, I didn't. And my mindset to that has completely changed. Completely changed into that when I speak about building relationships between myself and the goalkeeper, it is so crucial that relationships are built within the team, between goalkeeper and back four, goalkeeper, back four, and your sitting midfield players, goalkeeper, fullbacks, goalkeeper, wingers, because in the game, that's going to become crucial. So we speak when we're with the national side. Sometimes it's harder to do because you're pulling them from all different clubs, but we do it and we speak to them. We get Ross to, for example, last night, speaking about what side do you want to play on, what's your favourite side, what's the centre halves, Ryan and George, what's their favourite side to pass to. So when I'm maybe then working in, say, our technical work with passing, I'm speaking to them about the types of pass they want. Then when I'm maybe just in chance, speaking with Ryan, speaking with George, look, here's certain things you need to be aware of, but absolutely coaching both. When I've been involved with club sides, sometimes I've took practices, functional practices, where I'm in charge of the goalkeepers and the defenders. It might be building for the back, it might be defending a certain situation. and then I'm working on that with the assistant manager or the first team manager, whatever's at that moment in time. But it's certainly something that I feel is crucial. If you want success, then you need to build those relationships on the pitch, and it's something I've learned. Didn't used to do it, and I now do.
Brilliant. And one more from me. I guess obviously, as we all know, the position of a goalkeeper has changed so much, recently in football. I guess maybe putting you on the spot a little bit, but where do you see it developing from where it's at right now? So, your traditional goalkeepers are probably more the shot stoppers, but now, you're having to use your feet, having to play out the back, having to have that range of pass. So where does it go on from there?
I think, George, the next thing I'm waiting on is FIFA or UEFA now telling us we can't use our hands to save it, because you look at the new rules they're coming out with the penalty and things like that. So that's probably the next stage I see it now. But I think it's interesting. People ask me about the development of the position and how much it's changed. I still look at if you go back to my first slide where I'm speaking about that technical base, I don't think it has changed, because you've still got to stop the ball going in the net. You've still got to use your feet to make passes and kick it. So what's changed? I think the games just get quicker. Players have got quicker. So I think that's what's changed, to just make the position probably a bit more reactionary and maybe a bit more about agility in certain moments, because it's became quicker. So, what was maybe 10, 15 years ago, you were probably still making the same saves or the same passes. It's just that teams have become quicker. Pressing has become quicker. The speed of players has become quicker. The pace on the shots became quicker. So when people speak to me about the position, I'm always 50-50 on it. I don't see the position having changed. I just see having the games developed in a way that everything's a bit quicker. So your thought process has to be quicker. Probably in a coaching side, George, the way I've changed through that would be how I coach it's different. So rather than going in the corner and kicking 50 balls at somebody, for me that's just not, it doesn't work. And that's nothing against people who see that as working. I just think there's more to it, because for me the game is all about the positions you take up and the decisions you make when you're in that moment of the game. So I've got to develop that, and that's functional practices where there's goalkeepers and defenders working together. I will always, as a goalkeeper, I will always take movements off a defender, movements off a striker, movements off a midfielder, so that I've got to work in that way. I've got to learn those trigger points, if that makes sense. So to answer it, I'm always 50-50 in my head with that one.
Brilliant.
Tomorrow night I might say, oh, this is the next bit, but I always go back to what are the biggest things that impact the game. You're still going to have to save it. And then when you've got the ball at your feet, I see the passes the same. It's just quicker.
Yeah.
Doing it quicker.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thank you for
no problem.
Great. But yeah, just another big thank you for coming on tonight and taking the time. Obviously, I know you got back in late, or early this morning.
No, it was. It's always better when you get a victory and a clean sheet. It makes the flight go a lot quicker. Certainly.
Awesome. So this is recorded. We're going to upload it onto the website and onto YouTube. So you can find that to rewatch it back at halftimereview.co.uk. And again, Halftime Review on Twitter for those of you that don't follow us already. And all our other webinars and things like that will be there. But we'll get this uploaded in the next 24 hours, and it will be up there to watch again. So Fraser, thanks for coming on tonight, and we really appreciate your time.
No problem. No, thank you. Absolute pleasure. And as I say, I'm here for anybody. If they ever need anything in the future, then get in touch. But thank you all very much.